Jail.
Why?
I don't know. All right, we're live, Wrestling Bookmarks, with Nikita Breznikov, the author of When It Was Real, right here, which I just finished. Yeah, Kenny Casanova, the producer of the show, is in Facebook jail.
Wow.
Apparently, he shared a video that had copyrighted music, like everyone else does on Facebook. But I guess he got banned. he can't figure out how to get back on. So we're waiting for him to get his account back. But yeah, I just finished up the book last week. It was a great read. I was trying to figure out, how did you know all of the accounts of all the matches?
Some is here.
Yeah.
And my elaborate collection, which started with VHS tapes way back in I can tell you the exact time, 1983. It was like the Wrestling Review magazine. They would have a classified section in the back. So I found the guy in Philadelphia, and it said VHS tapes. So I'm like, I get a hold of him. Of course, in those days, we had no computer or internet, so you had to send a letter. And then he sends me a handwritten list. And I'm like, oh, man, things I'd never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe they were $35 a tape. And that was a lot of money back then. And it was like, yeah, okay, I think I bought 3. And in those days, if you to stretch it out to 6 hours, you lost quality, which you do, of course, with a disc recording. But that was even worse, trying to watch VHS tape. But I didn't care. I just, I piled on as much as I can. And then through the years, I kept elaborating and then improving the quality and then finishing out shows that I didn't have. And before you know it, well, like Vince said, Nikolai said to Vince one time, he has more matches than you do, Vince. I said, Nikolai, please shut the hell up. Don't tell him that, okay? But it was like, yeah, I do. I've got quite a collection. And it's like, when I retired from the police department, we moved to the Northwest. I had a little bit of time, well, 2 years actually. So I said, you know what? I've always had this in my mind, and now I'm going to do it. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to put When It Was Real together. I always had the title in my head because that's what we lived, as you read, Eddie, in that book. It's like we lived it. Still to this day, I'll talk to Evan Ginsberg and Scott Wilson, who's not a household name, but he's very much involved in supporting the sport. Things that happened all those years ago are still important today. That you can still talk about. It's like, you can't make people hate you. You can't make people love you like we love Bruno and Chief. And it's like, they captivated us. Just like I said to somebody earlier, it's like with a woman, you can't make her love you. She either loves you or she doesn't, and that's the end of it. You just do your best, and then it's going to be accepted or it's not. And that's what they all put forward. And that's why I say the book is not about me. It's about us. What it was like to us as fans and how we just went crazy for it.
Now, I liked it in the book how you knew, when someone was a match was advertised, but then the match wouldn't happen. And I liked how you put that in there because, knowing what we know now about like the behind the scenes reasons, it is interesting. Like, I think there was, I forgot whose match it was, and then they were just no longer with the company, and that's why they didn't have a match.
Baltimore had a curse with Superstar Billy Graham and Ivan Putski. The first time it was when Superstar got hurt after the match in Madison Square Garden with Dusty Rhodes. And so then he was out for almost a month. So that was September 26th. He was supposed to wrestle Putski in Baltimore October 1st. And Baltimore was a big Putski town. And it's like, man, the place was sold out. And they didn't say anything at the box office, although we had our tickets in advance. We walk in the door, nobody's telling you anything. They waited till we all got in and seated, and then they made the announcement that Superstar was injured. Of course, in those days, again, no internet. We didn't know anything what was going on until you were there. So, people were mad. So then they said, but we got Waldo Von Erich as a replacement. And it's like, well, that's a great match. Waldo Von Erich. he hadn't been in the area for a while, but still, Putski against Von Erich going to stay for that. And the rest of the card was good. And then it happened again a couple of years later. And then the same thing in Boston that year. Same circumstance. Superstar's hurt. He's supposed to wrestle Bruno. And Boston they love Bruno like every place in Boston. October the 10th, Superstar can't appear, so Tanaka takes his place. Then the rematch the next month, Bruno doesn't appear for whatever reason. And it's like, man, those poor people in Boston, they had to be ready to tear the building down after the second time. It's like, we want to see Bruno get the belt back. We don't want to see Putski and Graham. That's nice, but we wanted Bruno and Graham. So it's just one of those things. It happens because injuries. Like I say, true fiction, but the injuries, even though they tried to take care of each other more back then because they had to work every damn night. Maybe you weren't in Madison Square Garden. You would be in Cowtown, New Jersey, which is a legitimate place, wrestling like Chief told me one time, stepping over horse shit and cow shit to get to the ring. He said, but, you had to make those other shows during the week because you had the bills to pay. The big houses were great, but during the week you were in the gymnasiums and CYC up in Pennsylvania. And it was like these little venues, they still added up. And at the end of the month, you had yourself a pretty decent paycheck.
Yeah. Now, were you a big Ivan Putski fan?
Sure. He was, people say a lot of things about Ivan Putski, but back then, he was never a technical worker. He came out, he was a little bit cartoonish, but not over the top. He was a strong man. And I tell you what, this guy is dedicated because when we first laid eyes on him in 1975, he was every bit of 300 pounds. Then when he comes back, and he stayed that way till about 78. Then he was gone for a while to Florida. He comes back. He's dropped about 30 pounds, looked great. Then in 79, when he comes back, he looks even better. I mean, he looked like the chiseled look at that point. It's like, wow, it's impressive. But he always gave a good match. And he was another one of those faces that related to the crowd. And he didn't have to do a whole lot, but he was like, you felt like he represented you. So you got behind him. And he drew the people's emotions that way.
Yeah, in the book you mentioned, a lot of people that I watched when I was a kid, but maybe you watched them in a different part of their career, like Putski, Bruno Sammartino, Superstar Billy Graham, Freddie Blassie. There's a lot of people in here that I'm like, oh, I watched them too, but I wonder what that was like, before the WWF, created the machine that they became.
Now, see, like with Freddie, before he became a manager, and a lot of people only know him for that, which he was great at. It was fantastic. But as a wrestler, when he was nicknamed the Vampire because he was biting people, and he'd come out on the promos and he'd be filing his teeth, and it was wild because they say in Japan, I think it was like 60-some people dropped dead of a heart attack because they really believed he was a vampire. And Freddie used to, he was always in character. He said, my goal was to kill 100 people, have them drop dead of a heart attack. And it's like, well, he missed his goal, but they talk hardcore, like ECW and things like that. No. You didn't invent anything hardcore. You go back and you look at Blassie's matches, biting people in the head and the blood, and like the Spoiler or Blackjack Mulligan, when they put the claw on, the blood would come. It's like, but it was blood for a reason, not just to go see bleeding. It didn't, it makes you sound like you're a perverted, demented nut, but we got excited when we would see blood because they were smart. They would turn down the house lights and you only had the ring lights on, and the color was just fantastic. And I learned this through years in acting and the world of art. Lighting is so important, and they were smart with it because when they put all of the lights right on the ring, I mean, it was Marvel superheroes come to life. And in those days, you could get up close. Yeah. We would be at the ring a lot when they would come and try to get away. And it was like, wow, this is just like another world. You just felt so lucky to be there.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear to see Greg Valentine in the book.
Why?
I thought he was young in '85, like '84. I didn't realize that he had been wrestling in the 70s.
Yes, he's on the cover with Bob Backlund.
Yeah.
That's the President Day storm of February 19th, 1979. We got 22 inches of snow. Bruno couldn't even make it. They wrestled Koloff. He was snowbound in Pittsburgh. But that was a 1 hour draw. Now, see, there's a story to that. Valentine, he said, here I come from down in the NWA, and I'm thinking, oh, good, no more Broadways. I'm going to WWF. They're not known for having long matches. And he's like, they put me in an hour match with Backlund, you know, like, geez. But when he broke Strongbow's leg at the Hamburg Fieldhouse, coincidentally, on Valentine's Day, 1979, the building it belonged to a volunteer fire department. And that's where they would tape the B show, the all-star wrestling show. So Chief told me, he said, look, I told Phil Zacco, I'm going to do this right. He said, you know, I want Monsoon to break up the steps and make a splint. And I want you to open that overhead door, and I want the ambo to come into the building. And Zacco's like, you're crazy. We got a blizzard coming. It's like 20 degrees, and with the wind chill, it's minus 10. He's like, well, if we don't do it, forget about it. I'm not going to do the angle. So he's like, all right, we'll do it your way. So they do the thing. Valentine breaks the Chief's leg. They got him laying outside. Well, the fire department apparently was on a run because it took them about 20 minutes to get there. It's like, son of a bitch, the show might go off the air. So they weren't smart as to what was happening. They come in, they think they're treating somebody with a broken leg because it looks fantastic when you look back at the film. So they get him all wrapped up. They put him in an ambo. Problem was, people start leaving the building to follow the ambo to the hospital. It's like, now what do we do? It's like, head to Reading Hospital because we got a line of people, like they're following the presidential motorcade. They're following us. It's like, man, oh man, because we believe. And it's like, you hurt the Chief, because then Valentine said, you son of a bitches, they would break up my car, they would throw shit at me. I said, I know, Greg, I was one. We used to throw everything at you, you son of a bitch.
That's funny. We got somebody coming who wants to jump in here real quick with us.
Okay.
Ian Douglas.
Hey, Nikita, how are you?
Hello, Ian. How are you?
Doing well. I wanted to try to jog your memory a tiny bit. Back in 2002, you were at the Motor City Comic Con.
Yes.
With the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkoff. You had the booth right next to Virgil.
Yes.
And a few kids from the Specs Howard School of Broadcast Arts came up, and we asked if you would be willing to submit to an interview on camera. And not only did you, but the three of you stood up, selected a nice backdrop, and you let me interview all three of you on camera, in character, on the spot, right by your booth. Do you recall that?
Ian, I still talk to Ryan till this day.
Yeah.
And I tell you why I remember it so well. I call it the last good weekend of my life, because when I got back home that Monday, I got a call from the doctor. He said, you got prostate cancer. And so I'm talking on the phone, and my head is spinning, and I'm like, well, what does this mean, Doc? Am I going to get like a colostomy bag? He said, no, you goof, that's the other end. Come in and talk to me tomorrow. Well, I had to have the surgery, and I talk about it in a good way to save men, because for me, the blood test is what did it. It improved my quality of life. Today, a root canal is worse, believe it or not, than having the prostate removed. So please get a blood test. It will not only save your life, it'll improve the quality. But Ian, I absolutely remember that, because then I remember somebody said, we went to see Virgil and he wanted money. I'm like, you don't need no money. Get the cameras. And I said, don't bother Sheik, but start rolling the cameras. And when the cameras roll, and wasn't I right here? He goes, bring the camera here. Because then Ryan, you guys didn't have a mic. He said, yeah, talk loud. I can talk loud. And it's like, man, this is just fantastic. I'm still a fan till this day. You know, I mean, we love it so much. But yeah, I remember that. I loved it so much. It was a great time.
That was one of the greatest moments of my young life. That was the first wrestler interview I ever conducted.
I love it, man.
It was right there with the three of you guys. Since then, I've certainly nowhere on the level of Scott Teal, but I've gone on to co-author a few different wrestlers' autobiographies, including Bugsy McGraw, Hornswoggle, Dan Severn, and Brian Blair's autobiography, which should be out early next year.
Wow.
But that was the very first moment I ever had being involved in conducting a wrestling interview. Had a tremendous amount to do with that and making sure it went off without a hitch and in an entertaining fashion. So I wanted to make sure when I saw that you were going to be a guest on the show, I wanted to make sure to come on and thank you for that.
My pleasure. And please contact me. And you do the Facebook, right?
Yes, you'll
Please.
get a friend request from me within 5 minutes.
Oh man, that'll be great. As I tell you, and if it was F Troop there that weekend too, and I was a big F Troop fan as a kid, so I was in heaven. It's like, wow, everybody's here from F Troop. We're having a great time. And then there was a couple of gals there from Playboy, and they were older, but you'd never know it. So we're taking pictures with Janice. I forget her last name now, but after we took the picture, Sheik said, "No, that'll be $20." And she said, "That's okay, honey. It'll cost you $100." It's like, oh shit. Sheik said, "Never mind. Forget it."
Yeah.
So it was just a fun time.
Yeah, so the bookend to the story about Virgil not wanting to do an interview with us was he's like, hey, there's some Playboy stars, there's some porn stars over here. I don't want to do an interview, but you should be interested in doing an interview with them. So I remember their presence well, only because Virgil got out of the interview by suggesting that we should interview them instead. But instead we got to interview you, and it went wonderful.
Did you ever see the finished product?
Of that interview?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Beautiful. Because I mean, the girl from Michigan TV, I'll think of her name, Trudy. She does news. She was doing the voiceover for the thing, and I liked it. It turned out really well. And we talk about the prostate cancer because it's like, again, I always put that message that I lost my sister-in-law to breast cancer and other members of the family. So for the women, please get tested, and for that, and for the men, for the prostate cancer, because we haven't beaten that cancer in all these years, and I don't think it's going away.
Yeah, sadly, I'm sure that's true. All right, Nikita, I appreciate it. Eddie, thanks for letting
my pleasure, brother.
Yeah. Eddie, I'll let you get back to it. Thanks for letting me pop on for a minute.
No problem, buddy. All right, take care, man.
You too. Take care.
That was great, Eddie. That was.
Now, have you met? Did you know Ian Douglas?
From that time, you know
Yeah.
what he's talking about, but I have not talked to him since. So
Okay.
hopefully we will reconnect on Facebook. But
Yeah, no, he's a nice guy. He's
yeah,
he was part of COVID. He was on COVID Con. He came on with COVID Con.
see, yeah, like he said, it was 3 young guys came up, and it's like you always help people, especially me. It's like I always call myself the luckiest son of a bitch on the face of the earth that I got to get in the damn door. Okay. And it got through an accidental meeting with Nikolai, but it's like, I've never met anybody that acted too big or said, kiss my ass, or I ain't going to help you. I ain't going to do. Everybody like looks out for each other. I call it extending that circle of friendship, the ring of friendship with wrestling. And you help people.
So you've never met anyone in the wrestling business that wasn't nice to you when you met them? Try to big time you at all?
No. Everybody. I mean, and Bruno. I mean, how do you get any bigger than that? Never. He was humble. First time I meet Bruno, he was doing the color commentary for a guy named Dino Sana's promotion. So I said, Bruno, would you do me a favor? Could you put me over when you? Oh yeah, he made me sound like $1 million. And then I got to work with him a couple of times. He was the ref. He clocked me one time, open-handed, and I felt it for 2 weeks. And he was upset. He's, I didn't hit you too hard. I said, no, Bruno, that was beautiful. It was beautiful. It's like, oh my God, this guy, I can't imagine 20 years ago he hit you. If he hit you full force, you'd leave the planet without a doubt. He was a monster too. So no, everybody, and they could have very easily just said to me, hey, tough luck, kid. Figure it out on your own. Yeah. But people took care of me and made sure I didn't get hurt and that I learned, because I did get to work with the best because of Nikolai working main events. And of course, with him as my trainer and my backbone, how could I go wrong?
So what towns did you work? Did you work in when you were?
Oh, everything on the East Coast.
Okay.
I mean, we would do the New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. once in a while, Connecticut, Maryland had some pretty good wrestling going on. In Virginia, we would drop down to Ohio. Now, what you got to know with the different promotions, there was a guy named Dennis Carluzzo. God rest his soul. Dennis was a good friend. He was doing the NWA after the main NWA branched off, and Dennis had started his own NWA. He was part of the original affiliation, but he was running the independent NWA. So he was doing great. He had some very good shows going and a good promotion. I helped him get some stuff started in Maryland, but there was so much backstabbing and throat cutting. You know, people would tear down posters and they would say, oh, the show's canceled. And it was like, you know what? If you all would work together, you ain't going to chase Vince away, but you could all have a piece of the pie. But no, they don't do that. Everybody tried to screw the other guy and put their stuff over. You know, there's a great promotion coming up now called North American Wrestling Alliance, NAWA, and Tony Capone's organization. Watch it. It's coming up. They got a big pay-per-view event December 19th out of Florida. They're trying to get back to what we loved. Okay. No cartoons, no nonsense, but wrestling. Yeah. And that's what we want. That's what we need.
I like the cartoons.
Well, you know what?
Well, I tell you, I loved wrestling until probably 88, I think. I think around 88, 89 is when I got
that they did with Nikolai and Hogan and stuff like that.
What's that?
Do you mean those kind of cartoons?
No, I'm saying like the cartoon of like when wrestling became more like like the outlandish characters. Like I liked it when it was like, you know, Big John Studd, Andre the Giant, Greg the Hammer. I like that, but then when they got into like the other stuff, I'm like, okay, that's a little unrealistic.
Vince and Stone Cold's antics were funny to watch. It was wrestling entertainment. That was not right. I like people say, "Oh, Stone Cold's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time." It's like, you must be crazy. He's not. He was a great entertainer. He's a tough son of a bitch, but he's no Bruno. He's no Backlund and people like that. It's like, come on, guys. No, it ain't gonna cut it. But he did. He drew more money probably than all those other names I mentioned because he was at the right place at the right time, and it clicked. It was funny, you know, but it wasn't wrestling.
Yeah, I do wonder how some of those guys would have done. Like I think the Rock would have been fine if he was wrestling in the 80s.
Well, you know, see, a lot of people try to play that what if, and I always say I don't know because I can only tell you what is. But I mean, his background with his grandfather and his father, it's like, geez, he had the greatest trainers in the world. He probably would have been just as good, only on a different level in a different way. And it's like, sure, I have no doubt that he would have succeeded. Now, some of the other ones, I mean, who knows? Because I still, as of last night, see the arguments on the net as to the what ifs. And it's like, whatever. Because like tomorrow is the anniversary when Hogan first made his TV appearance in 1979.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and it's in the book. Not the other stuff after the Rocky movie. And he was good. I mean, he was big. He had some good matches with Backlund in the Spectrum. He never wrestled Backlund in the Garden. And because he was brought in for Andre. They wanted the big guy thing to go on. And it was successful. They did it. They pulled it off. No problem. But when you look at Hulk Hogan, and I met him many times, nice guy. You can't say anything bad about him. I mean, what the hell? You were there. They handed you the wheel. Drive it, man. Drive it into success. And he did it. Why not?
Yeah. Now, did you ever get a chance to meet Andre?
Never met the Giant.
No.
I was close up to him in Baltimore after Stasiak hit him with the heart punch. And I swear to you, man, Eddie, his eyes were glassed over. He's like, walking. And I don't think he was selling for us because once the match is, you know, pretty much it was done. I think he was hurt. I think Stasiak really nailed him hard. I mean, he potatoed him in the chest. And of course, you got that big guy. I mean, he passed away from what made him who he was. So I guess maybe a couple of blows in the heart probably weren't a good idea.
Right. Now, how about Big John Studd? Did you ever get a chance to watch John Studd? Did you ever get a chance to watch him?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Now, throughout his transitions, when he first appeared in 1973 as Chuck O'Connor, and he had Kowalski's purple tights with the lightning bolts going down the side. And he was in the Rookie of the Year running against Tony Garea. They threw a couple other names in there, but those were the main two. And Tony Garea won. So then he leaves after his run as Chuck O'Connor. Not bad, mid-Carter kind of deal. Then he comes back with Kowalski as the Executioners in 1976. Big guys. And they were big in stature, not just name, but it was like, that was impressive. Then after that run, then he doesn't come back again until 1982 as Big John Studd. And then, he went at it with Backlund, or 83. And then it was end of 82 into 83. And then again, big man put him with Andre, because that was the big thing. First, it actually started with Kowalski against Andre, because Kowalski had good size. He wasn't a big beefy guy, but he was big enough. Then Don Leo Jonathan. Then it started with Freddie really drilled into it with Hogan, Killer Khan with the broken ankle. There was
Killer Khan, yeah.
There was another lucky son of a bitch, because his tour was just about done. Then Andre breaks his ankle, and it's like, woo, let's build on this. Okay, say Khan broke the ankle, and then, man, Killer Khan staying because he's going to make money hand over fist. It was a great angle. And he was believable because he was big enough. He could hurt Andre. But the best one, in my opinion, Blackjack Mulligan. I seen him slam the Giant even before all that Hogan. And Hogan slammed him in 1980 and 81. But when Mulligan slammed him, it was at the Spectrum in a 6-man match. Mulligan had the size. Mulligan was a damn giant.
Wow. And I don't know if I guess I did see Blackjack Mulligan. More so like 84, 85-ish.
Okay.
We got a question here. What are your thoughts on wrestling today?
Well, I'll never disrespect it. It's different. Absolutely different today, because you're seeing too many high spots instead of wrestling. Okay. Which was, you'd see like Johnny Rods against S.D. Jones would be our typical opener. And, they spent most of the time on the mat. You weren't going to see a high spot in the opener. Even in the main event, you probably weren't going to see anything crazy, but you didn't need it because you had the believability factor. Today, everybody's trying to outdo each other. And what's the problem? People are calling it fake and laughing at it. And it's like, you're killing yourself for a bunch of people that really don't care. And
I
don't know how you reestablish it. Again, NAWA and Tony Capone, they're trying to do that, but I don't know how it's going to be done, but I believe he can do it. But the way things are right now, to just keep going out there and taking the corner so hard, to go flying off the top rope every match. And I've been up close managing people over the couple of years, and I'm watching, and I'm like, my bones are rattling. I'm just thinking, what are they feeling? This is unbelievable. But like I said to somebody, I know you're not working every night, because you're not going to take bumps like that every night and get up the next day and go to the next town. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I watch a lot. Sometimes I'll be watching and I'm like, what was the point of that? It made no, was the point of that match just to have them jump off a scaffold? Like, because nothing else made sense. We had Mickey Doyle on last week, and he said that, the art of storytelling has kind of been lost.
That's it. That's it. You'd have usually Pat Patterson was the exception. He won 4 matches with Backlund. You'd have a 3-match run usually to settle something. The blow off would come with the 3rd match. And you would build everybody up and build them up until they came there. We're pulling our hair out of our head. We can't wait to see what's going to happen with the finish. And it's like, yeah, even the matches themselves, the story was being told. You would build it up nice and easy. Tony Garea, I think he's underrated because he doesn't get the accolades he deserves. He said he was wrestling Superstar when Superstar was champion. It was July 9th, 1977 at the Spectrum. Tony says, I'm driving in. It's like, man, it's a beautiful day. Nobody's going to be there. They're all going to be at the beaches or wherever. Place was packed. So he and Superstar lock up, and they just start pushing back and forth. And Superstar said, stay with it. They're eating it up. They're loving it. He said, that's all we did for about 15 minutes, back and forth, push me, push you. And then from there, then we're doing the little list, the little of that. And it's like, then here come the couple of drop kicks. Boom. Then we have the finish. And it's like, that's how you do it, man.
Yeah. Do you follow any other sports?
I used to be an avid baseball and football fan, even some hockey and a little bit of roller derby, but they pissed me off with their strikes in baseball.
Yeah.
1973, I was a kid, or 72 when they had the first one. I gave them a buy on that, but after 1981, I said, hell with you. I'm done with it. Because I'm out there as a police trying to make money,
yeah,
put my life on the line, and you son of a guns aren't happy making that money. And with football, we loved the Colts so much in Baltimore that the night they left town, I believe it was March 29th of 1983, they left in two Mayflower vans from the training facility in Owings Mills, Maryland, in a little bit of a snowstorm. We all spit on it and said, that's it. Because in those days, those guys were in the neighborhoods, in the neighborhood bars. They were there with the people. They were our team. And it wasn't just you're watching pro football on television. It was like, man, that's our team, the Colts. So that really dismayed me from that point on. I was like, the hell with this.
Well, the only reason I ask is I used to be a huge NBA fan, like in the 80s and 90s. And now all they do, I don't know if you follow or whatever, but all they do is shoot. It's a three-point contest now. They shoot 63 pointers a game. So I was telling a friend of mine, I go, how can you enjoy this? If the whole game is a high spot, how can you get excited for the high spot? It's like in the wrestling,
I hear that about football and baseball too.
Absolutely.
And it's like, to me, Hank Aaron will always be the home run champion, without a doubt. Okay. And I know all the other arguments, and it's like, no, Hank Aaron is the home run king, period. I don't want to hear it from anybody else. And it's like, maybe it's because I got to witness when he tied and broke the record, not in person, but on television. And it's like, and that's who you grew up with. So it means a lot to you. Okay. Look at boxing. When I was growing up, let me back up, Eddie. The 70s, in my opinion, were the greatest sports era of all time because it was rogue, but yet not over the top. They were, wrestling was starting to get a little bit more exciting because there were times where a headlock could last 10 or 15 minutes and maybe wasn't the best idea, but we're evolving. Look at boxing. When Muhammad Ali fought Joe Frazier, the world stopped, man. The whole world.
Right.
Today, I don't even know who the hell the heavyweight champion is in boxing. Nobody mentioned.
I've been trying to get back into boxing. I mean, for me, Mike Tyson will always be the best fighter of all time.
Oh, well, he was damn good, sure.
I mean, but it is funny, I think there must be some impressionable years where from 9 to 12, everybody will always think whatever they experience at 9 to 12 is the best ever.
Yeah, but you got to take a look.
I think the '86 Mets are one of the best baseball teams of all. I'm not even a Mets fan. It's my favorite team. Probably is the '86 Mets.
Well, I'll tell you what. I remember the '69 Mets very well because they beat Baltimore in 5 games. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of the films. Some of the plays they were making, it's like it's unbelievable.
Wait, was that the Orioles team where they had? Did they have 4 20-game winners or something like that?
That was 1971's team.
Oh, okay.
But that year, the Orioles just annihilated everybody else. They beat a strong Minnesota team in the playoffs. They swept them. And then it's like, okay, they're going to kill the Mets. How the hell the Mets beat the Braves? Nobody understood. Because they should have never beat the Cubs. The Cubs blew that lead. But it's like, okay, bring the Mets on. And the Orioles won the first game. And then it was like, here we go. And then it was like the next 4, it's like, what is happening? But they couldn't get anything right. It was crazy.
Yeah. No, it's interesting how sports in general have evolved to this, it's like everything has to be quick, action-packed, wrestling, baseball, whatever it is, that people can't sit through that symphony, that orchestra of watching a story develop. They need the quick action, immediate gratification.
Well, look at movies, even the way they have progressed. Everything's a remake now, and it's like, what, you have no creative writers? This is all you can do is remake of a classic. And like, I'm a big Universal Monsters fan. So when somebody comes up with a remake of the Wolfman, I'm like, get the hell away from me. It can't be. All right. I don't care what special effects you have or whatever. It is not going to be surpassed. Forget about it.
I know. No, I hear you, especially on the movies. I mean, how many different renditions of a superhero movie are they going to do? Like every other week, there's got to be at least 30 different Spider-Mans that have come out in the last 10 years.
And I'm a big the original Marvel cartoons that were on, believe it or not, besides the comic books, they would show cartoons. I mean, it was very primitive, but to us, it was exciting because we never did anything like that. So the Spider-Man 66 collection, it's like, I have it, and it was classic. It was great. But yeah, when they brought them to life, that's a good idea. It had never been done before.
Right.
But you got to know when to say, okay, you know what? Now we're going over the top. At some point, the hand over fist money making overtakes the passion of the project, and that's when you lose people.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, Transformers probably there's gonna be Transformers 25 at one point because they just put out a piece of crap and people go and see it and they make $100 million. I remember reading an interview with Christopher Nolan. I don't know, the director of like Memento, Inception, The Dark Knight. I mean, he's the guy's a great director, but he said that they weren't going to let him do Inception, which was like a great movie, like an actual movie, unless he did The Dark Knight. And he didn't want to do Batman. He wanted to just make real movies, and they said they wouldn't let him do Inception unless he did The Dark Knight. Probably happens all the time, right? You have like these really good writers, and I wonder if wrestling is falling into that too, where they're chasing the money as opposed to playing the long game and trying to build an audience.
Well, I'd say the main promotions, sure, that's going to be the bottom line, is the buck, as always. And that's why when I started the endeavor of When It Was Real, I mean, we all want to make money. That's the name of the game. But when I finally found somebody to get behind it in Scott Teal, he said, if you think you're going to make a lot of money at this, walk away now. We're going to do it for the passion. He said, I'm hoping your book will be the one that I can, finally get into black, because I got all these other books, but I've taken such a bath over the years. I'd really like to make money, but don't expect it. Just if we're going to do it to preserve the history and for the passion of the sport, I'm your man. So that was the agreement we came to.
Yeah. No, that was. So how long did it take you to write the book?
It took me 2 years to write it.
Years.
6 years to find somebody to get behind it. And then it took Scott and I 2 years to edit it. It was Scott doing the actual editing.
Really?
Yeah, because it's a lot of fact checking.
Oh yeah. Well, what I was wondering, where did you get all these little like the advertisements?
The newspaper clippings. Now that is Scott Teal alone, because and this is what we're talking about, gang. These were the things that used to appear in the newspaper. That was our advertisement, a half-hour promo segment in the middle of the 1-hour championship wrestling show. And that newspaper clipping was all you had to know to come to the Civic Center the next month. So I get the little card, the advertisement cards, before Scott gave me a copy of the book, and it says 227 black and white images. And I'm like, what the hell? I didn't give Scott that many pictures. I don't want to get sued. What kind of pictures is he using? I don't want to have like copyright problems. Then I get the book, and it's like, oh, it's the clippings. This is cool. Because I had told the wife one time, I said, man, I'd love to do a clippings book. And Scott actually did it. So that's why if you want to order the book, you get it through crowbarpress.com. That's the full version. There's a Kindle version on Amazon, but you can't get the clippings through that. So to me, that's half of the book, the clippings.
Yeah, no, I did enjoy that, because I try to collect the old posters. If I can find them. Do you have any do you have any cool memorabilia? Because you were friends with a lot of these guys.
Yes, I have a lot of memorabilia. I mean, I got like chairs from SummerSlams. Chief gave me different things he wore into the Nikolai, of course. My God. But the pictures that I post on the site, on the Facebook page every night, I bought them. I didn't take. I only took I had a probably 100% of the pictures I post. I probably took 1% one time. The rest I bought. And so it's like, to me, that's gold as well, because a lot of those are historic. Programs galore. I mean, that collection, I told the wife, when my time comes, if I beat you to the grave, you know, get a hold of Evan Ginsberg. He'll tell you what to do with it and how to properly do, you know, handle it. But it's like, that's a collection in itself. And see, like a lot of the things that are posters that I put up there, they're copies that I got off the net. You know, just little pictures, but then they look blown up when I put them on the screen. But I wish I had that many posters. I mean, no, I got a lot of indie posters, of course, but to have. Do you
have any in-ring gear at all that anyone had worn?
Chief, some of the stuff he wore, a few things of Nikolai's, but not a lot, because a lot of people didn't want to part with things too much over the years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, one of the things I found was, you know, like if you look at like a baseball player, I mean, they have unlimited amount of jerseys that they can get. But the wrestling, I found that they really, some of them wore like 1 or 2 pairs of boots.
Yes.
That's why there's not a ton out there.
Yes. There's not a lot of equipment that you pass down to the generations. So it is hard to come by. Now, see, somebody recently sent me a question. They said, I'm trying to buy a poster. It was from the 60s, Bruno against the Kentucky Butcher. Mm-hmm. Mike Quinn, and it's like they said the guy wants $750 for it. Why would he want $750 for it? I said, well, it's whatever the market will bear. It's rare. I mean, it's like back to baseball, the Nolan Ryan rookie card. If you remember when that was a big thing, that was worth $1,500 at one point. It's like it's worth $1,500 if you find somebody to give it to you. If not, hey, that's nice. Hold on to Nolan Ryan's rookie card. Enjoy it. Right. So it's like I said, you know, it's up to you. If you want to spend $750 for the poster, if it means that much to you, I'm crazy enough that I would buy something like that. Like I have, like Batman 66, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, those kind of things. Yeah, I've spent big money on items that are collectibles. It's up to you. If it means that much to you, then it's worth it.
Yeah. I collect a ton of stuff. Baseball, wrestling. The coolest thing that I ever bought, I went to an estate sale and there was somebody, it was like a journal, and it was from 1927, the 27 Yankees. Wow. And it was like some kid, he must have been, 10 or 11. He chronicled the entire season in 1927. Woo. All the newspaper clippings, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig. I mean, it's pretty. I paid $10 for it.
Wow.
And it's like just as somebody chronicling, because they didn't have TV back then. Now
so I'm pretty cool. You into something, Eddie. You know who Ron Blomberg is? He played for the Yankees. He's the very first designated hitter in Major League Baseball history. Okay. He's on Facebook. Look him up. He will probably do something with that, with you, for you, whether you want to or not. It's up to you. But contact Ron Blomberg. He could at least highlight it for you in some way, shape, or form, because that's supposed to be the greatest team of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely.
And he's on Twitter too, and he's a wonderful guy, very personable. The only problem you would have, he may have exceeded whatever limits to have friends, but he would be glad to talk to you, I'm sure.
Oh, all right. Yeah, definitely look him up. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So how did you first meet anyone in the wrestling industry? I know you were a cop.
It was Nikolai. I mean, we're talking posters, one advertised in the 7-Eleven. There were going to be a Sunday afternoon local show. So I'm like, well, I'm on day work. And this is me collecting, at that time, VHS tapes. So I'm thinking, well, if I go there, maybe I can talk to Nikolai. Maybe he's got a line on, I could get some more material. So I get there Sunday afternoon. It was a boys club. Never met him before. I'm in uniform. He comes walking in. Of course, you can't miss Nikolai. He said, hello, Sergeant. I said, hey, Nikolai. So he comes out to sell his gimmicks. So I go up. We start talking. He says, no, I don't have nothing, but please, I'll pay you. I'd love to have match. I said, Nikolai, you ain't gonna pay me nothing. I owe you. Everybody that was there for me as an abused kid, when I turned on that TV and came to the arena, I'll make you the tapes. And
Right.
There we become friends. And I mean, the stories I tell about Nikolai, what a wonderful human being he still is. And I know he's gone, but it's like his love lives on through all of us. You can never lose that. That man touched so many lives, just not as the celebrity, but as a person, because it never got in his head that who he was, that he was this larger than life celebrity. He was just like, I'm lucky. I'm glad to be here. Do what I can do. And it's like, he was a great man.
Now, what was he like? What was he like outside of the ring?
He was like, he and I together, it would be like a Three Stooges classic. Okay. He loved to laugh. And farting was the big thing. He would, he always wanted to make a movie about a flatulating contest because Lord James Blears gave him a tape one time, big name in Hawaii. And it was a farting competition. So Nikolai said, we have to make the movie because we got involved making some movies and stuff like that over the years with people. And I'm like, Nikolai, it's a great idea. I don't know how the hell we do it, but so we would always be laughing. He loved to laugh. So one time, Nikolai is always into this health, whatever, some gimmicks, right? So there's one point he takes me, he said, we're going to go to these monks. They do this yoga stuff. I said, yeah, go to the monks. Okay. And these guys were like the Kung Fu monks, if you remember the TV series. They were serious dudes. They were into it. Everybody's head shaved but us. So, okay, we're doing the thing. So we're sitting on a chair and we're reading out of this book. Nikolai was not good with the English language, so he'd give me, I'd read his part and then I'd read mine that everybody had to read. So I'm looking over and he's starting to like laugh and he's turning blue. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then I'm like, oh no, we're sitting on wooden chairs and then here it comes. I'm like, oh shit, literally. These monks, they were true monks because they didn't miss a beat, Eddie. They just kept and Nikolai's like, he's letting them fly, man. It's like he can't help it. Then he starts laughing. Then I start laughing like little kids. Nothing will bring the house down like a good fart, man. I tell you.
That's funny. Yeah,
he loved to
because of him. I know the Russian national anthem.
Oh, very good.
I mean, I at least know how it goes.
Yes.
I mean, it was such a great gimmick, don't you think?
Well, yeah, but then in later years, he would, because he wanted to, he became face after that Soviet Union fell apart, and he'd say, I'm going to sing God Bless America. And they said, no, we want to hear Soviet national anthem. And he'd say, but what the hell's wrong with them? I said, that's what they love you for. Sing that. Don't worry about God Bless America. You can sing that later. Give them what they want. He's like, sing. Okay. So he would belt it out.
Yeah. So
you know how that got started, Eddie?
No, I don't.
He was in Louisiana. And Jake the Snake's father, Grizzly Smith, was the booker. They were working for Bill Watts. So the tape that they would play of the Soviet national anthem, Grizzly Smith forgot to bring it. So Bill Watts said, you screwed up. I'm going to give you a big fine. You ruined the whole thing tonight. Nikolai said, no. I can sing it. They said, really? He said, yeah. So they go out and the announcer, he helped sell it. He said, well, ladies and gentlemen, sad to say, we can't play the Soviet national anthem because the tape was destroyed. They said, oh, yeah, everybody's having, go, we don't want to hear that. And they said, however, Nikolai Volkov is going to sing it. And it was like, he said, I'd never been scared in my life until that night. He said, I started singing and they're stomping and they're breaking the chairs and they're stomping. He said, I thought they was going to be a big riot and try to kill me. He said, from that point on, they said, forget the tape, Nikolai, you sing it. That's beautiful. And that was it, man.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's what an interesting career to get people to hate you. I feel like I would have been good at that.
There's a guy that was opposite his character. When he came in 1970, part of the Mongols team, he was only 19 years old. He had defected from Croatia.
Yeah.
They were having a weightlifting meet in Canada. And he got lost. Instead of getting back on the bus to go home, and the Hart family found him and took him in. And then that's when they helped develop him. And then he hooked up with Newton Tattery, Jito Mongol, and what a great gimmick. But as a kid looking at that guy, I didn't know he was 19, but it's like, how in the hell is Chief or Bruno going to beat that guy? Look at him. He's a monster. He was our first giant on the East Coast. I say that. I believe I say it in the book, too. Andre didn't come along until 1973. So Nikolai was really the first giant. You know, you're not going to beat Andre, but Nikolai. In fact, today was the first day in the Garden that Andre and the Chief teamed up in 1973. They went against Stasiak and Blackjack Lanza. So, like, man, that was just incredible. And Nikolai was good friends with the Giant. He cooked for him because Andre was a little bit Croatian, too. He was French. He had some Croatian in him. And so Nikolai could cook a lot of those dishes. And, of course, the Giant would probably eat if he wasn't sleeping because he was so big, try to fill up keep him happy.
Your memory is unbelievable.
Well, because I loved it. See, I was a shit student in school because I hated it. But wrestling, and you asked me things about the Batman series and things like that. I got it up here because it's in here in the heart, so it's connected to the brain, so I could put it out.
What else did you watch when you were a kid?
Oh God, without a doubt. I mean, you know, the Three Stooges. Women hate them, but they're not called the Three Intellects. They're called the Three Stooges. So they're going to act goofy, and you're going to laugh and have a good time. So, you know, my first, I guess, inspiration law-wise would have been Gunsmoke with Matt Dillon. So every kid. And Combat, man, the war show with the Vic Morrow, God rest his soul. He should have never died the way he died, the poor guy with the Twilight Zone movie. Combat was a big Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. I loved that so much. Star Trek, the wife got me involved in that. I was never a Trek fan, but I like it now. But Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea was the opposite. We loved it, but it never really caught on with that kind of fan base.
Right.
So, you know, but I tell you, years later, I became a fan of Homicide: Life on the Street. Even though I was on many sets, not as an actor, but doing security as police. And I was like, you know, police show gives a shit. You know, they're probably some bullshit. You know, we don't watch it. But then the wife, again, she was watching the reruns, and it was still on when it became syndicated on the Lifetime, on the Law Channel. Forget what the hell they call it now. Court TV. So she got me. She was watching it at one time. I sit down. I'm like, damn, that's accurate. Everything is accurate. Look at it, even except the badges, but they're the old style. So I really became a fan of that. And Yaphet Kotto, who was the star, along with Andre Brower and Kyle Secor, Ned Beatty was in it. Kay, her character, Melissa Leo, it's like she's 2-time Academy Award winner. There's a lot of big names in that series. And it's very good. It's not a lot of action because they tagged it the greatest series nobody's watching, because it was in depth about victims of crime more so than it would be like an action series. And Starsky and Hutch, that, you know, I always attribute them. I say Starsky and Hutch really got me maybe to the police department. It's 1975. I mean, it blew the TV off. It was just like, they were great to watch, and we got involved in it. So I already had that background that I wanted to do it. And then they kind of pushed me over the edge. It was like, all right, I'm going to go sign up. What the hell?
Did you watch Lost in Space at all?
Yeah, I did. Because it was Irwin Allen. Yep. Voyage was his creation too. So, yeah, I got to see it. Oh, okay. When I say Herman Munster, Nikolai was like Herman Munster because I love the Munsters, you know. And it's like, shit, everything Herman does, Nikolai would probably do. He'd probably walk through the door and say, "Hey, what the heck? What happened here? You know, sorry, I fixed it. Don't worry."
Now, did you know him when he was? What year did you meet him?
I met him in 1994.
94, okay.
Yes.
So was he still in the WWE at the time?
Yeah, he was doing that horrible gimmick with the $1 Million Man. They called him 2 Cents.
Okay.
And they said he was living in, you know, on the street. So Ted DiBiase took him in. Because I was with him the next year when Vince was doing the Shotgun Saturday Night Lives. Or not Saturday Night, Shotgun Saturday Nights. He was actually filming in bars, believe it or not. He was getting his ass kicked by WCW, so he was trying everything under the sun. So they did a gimmick with Nikolai in Times Square that he was living in a cardboard box. So Todd Pettengill, who was a big announcer with them at the time, he said, and we're walking in Times Square. He said, oh, look, there's Nikolai Volkoff. And he comes in, he said, look what happened to me. This from working for WWF all those years. I got no money left. So it was funny. It was a cartoon, but
Now, would people recognize him if you went out in public with him?
yes, you couldn't go anywhere without people noticing Nikolai. Sure.
Really?
Yeah, without it.
What was that like?
Well, he never. I'll tell you this, and let me compare it like this. He married my son. He became a minister, and I think my son is the only one he married. So we're at the ceremony, and people really didn't click with them right away. And then when they found out who it was, here they come lining up at the reception, pictures, autographs. So my old partner was with me, and he said, I can't believe that. All the people that came up to him, he didn't turn anybody down. He was happy. I said, that's him. He understands, because he came from communism. Uh-oh. Am I still on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Something came up on the screen. He came from communism, so he never lost sight of what it was like to be happy and know you've got it good. So he was always willing to share, and he did.
Yeah. No, I remember reading stories about him because I think he had a job with the local government, right?
Yes, he worked for Baltimore County. He was a housing inspector, but not like somebody that comes to inspect your electric or plumbing. It was like for the people bitching on their neighbors. His grass is high and the weeds. So here's a good story to tie into that. He goes out to this old lady's house, and she says, "Oh, sir, I can't work a lawnmower. I don't have any family." So he says, "I could not give her no bullshit $500 ticket. I go after work. I cut her grass." And he did it. And he cut the lady's grass because he felt sorry for her.
Wow.
And that's Nikolai Volkov. And the pictures I'd see him give away, dolls he would give away. People would see, like in later years too, a lot of assholes would think they were booking him cheap because he didn't know what Jen was up. It's like, no, bastard. He understood. But he liked to get away from home. And he liked to be on the road. That was where his heart was. So he maybe take less money to do some things, or he wasn't going to get paid over the top. But, a lot of these idiots, then they would say, "Oh, I could get Nikolai for that." It's like, yeah, why don't you knock that shit off? Because you can't get Nikolai for that. If he really didn't want you to, you wouldn't get him for that.
Now, how was he in his later years? Was he hurt from wrestling at all, or pain-wise, or?
Everybody in wrestling suffers.
Yep.
With him, it was his feet and his knees from going over the top, because not a lot of people slammed him. Okay, over the years he did the slamming, but he would have to take the bumps out of the ring. And 320 pounds going over the top rope to the floor is not going to land well. So for him, it was his feet and his knees and ankles that would give him the most trouble over the years, more so than anything else. I mean, he would have the aches and pains too, because you take the buckle, you try to brace yourself, but you go at some point you're going to hit it hard. So yeah, but he was in very good shape at the end, and it was a shock to me when he passed. I know we say it 100 times. I can't believe it when you get the call, and I couldn't believe it. It's like, this can't be. How the hell? And I still, here it is. I'll pick up the phone. It's like, he's on the phone. I'm looking at it. I still got his voice messages, and it's like, man, I want to call him and tell him something funny or stupid, make him laugh. And I was like, you can't do it, man. Shit. It's not a day goes by.
Yeah. No, well, you guys obviously had a great relationship, which is, it's, that's pretty cool.
We were deep, without a doubt.
Now, was he close with the Iron Sheik? I know they had the tag team.
Yes. They were like they were married. They fought a lot, but like they were married,
right.
But loved each other till the end. And because I remember one time we were doing a indie show, it was in California, and Terry Funk's laughing his ass off. He said, "Here they come again, just like always, screaming and hollering that you did this wrong, you did that." He said, "It never changed." And it's like, but they love each other. It's like, yeah, they do, without a doubt.
And I wasn't happy when they broke up as a tag. I love that tag team.
I'm gonna tell you something, Eddie. I think that was one of the greatest teams of all time. I mean, it was at the cartoon era, all right, because that's when the transition was happening. Because I said this earlier to somebody. Everybody wants to talk about Hogan in 1984, and it's like, yeah, you can't deny that. but you also can't deny Sergeant Slaughter. That was a big part of 1984. And so was the Sheik and Nikolai and Roddy Piper. That was all part of what made 1984. And then the cartoons just overwhelmed it. And then it was like, I'm done with this. I can't.
What year would you say that you kind of tuned out?
At the end of 84. 84 was hit and miss. But then, I got involved in it. Then
WrestleMania wasn't intriguing to you?
I was watching here and there in 85, and I remember that first show, but it didn't do me any good. Like, I know a lot of the boys were pissed off with Mr. T in the main event.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, hey, Mr. T's in the main event. He looks like a midget. They kill him. And Piper was no bodybuilder, and it looked like Piper could break him in half. And it's like, this is stupid. I don't understand this. But there's stories about it, but a lot of people weren't happy. And of course, then you hear the Dr. D thing, that didn't sit well with him. And then another incident occurred, and then it just blew out of proportion.
Yeah.
I take my hat off to him. He's a man. Dr. D's a good man. It's like bullshit. I bust my ass and bleed, and you're going to give the top spot to some actor? Go to hell.
Right. Yeah, no, that absolutely. So are you saying that, because I noticed in the book you mentioned George Steele, but was he not George the Animal at the time?
George the Animal Steele was who I grew up with.
Right, but was he the Animal, or did they not call him that at the time?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Okay.
The Animal Steele, yes. And I tell you what, there's a guy, and he did great interviews before, because according to him, in 1983, because he'd come out with a Daddy-O gimmick. Hey, Daddy-O, I'm coming to Baltimore, and I'm going to beat Pedro Morales, Daddy, and I'm going to make him suffer. And then Vince one day said to him, let's make you like Quasimodo, Hunchback of Notre Dame. And he's like, what? And he's like, yeah. And I've got the last interview on tape that he did where he was actually speaking.
Really?
And then
you gotta post that on Facebook. I've never heard him talk.
Oh, it's all over Facebook. It's all
okay.
It's for the June 6th, 1981 show against Bob Backlund. So, or not Facebook, but it's on YouTube. So, Vince tells him to do that. And so he's like, arm. And he's like, oh, that's beautiful. And he's like, okay, whatever you want. You're paying write the checks. I'll do it. And it's like, we didn't think that was great, but
yeah,
he was being George Steele. But the George Steele that wrestled Bruno and Chief and people like that, and Pedro Morales, when Pedro was heavyweight champion, he would look and the section would clear out because we didn't have any barriers in those days between us and the wrestlers. He'd look in your direction and you're climbing over the other guy's back to get the hell away because here comes that crazy George the Animal Steele. And I remember sitting at ringside one night, and that was the greatest thrill in the world, too, to get a ringside seat. And the commissioners, because remember, everything was regulated by State Athletic Commission. They were, because I think he did it on purpose. He'd go out of the ring and upset the table, and drinks are flying, papers are flying. That son of a bitch, I hate when he's on a show, because he would upset everything for him. But that was what George the Animal Steele was all about. So he gave the people what they came to expect. And like he said, me go over? Why would I go over? They come to see me get beat. Let whoever beat me. Let me do my thing. I'll do it with the gimmick and the turnbuckles and all that. And then at the end, I get pinned. Boom. Everybody's happy. So he had a good mind for the business.
Yeah. I mean, I've read his book too. Who was his rival in the 70s back then?
Bruno, without a doubt. Bruno's last match, I know Bruno made a comeback in 85, teaming up with his son and different, but that's a story in itself. Bruno's actual last match on October the 4th, 1981 at the Meadowlands Arena was against George the Animal Steele. That's when Bruno was walking away from the business. Okay. He had a couple of Japan matches that week too, but that was his final match. And George Steele was an appropriate villain to face, an opponent, because other than Waldo von Erich, who Bruno faced the most time in his career, Kowalski was beyond his prime, so that couldn't happen. George Steele was an obvious choice.
Wow. Yeah, I met him once. He was a lot bigger in person than he looked on TV, that's for sure.
I'm going to tell you something. There's a match, a tag match, that he teams up with Cicluna one time, and the next time with Stasiak against Garea and Zabisco at the Garden. These are from 1977, August the 1st, and then August the 29th, and he just annihilates them. And it's not a shoot, but you could see how easily he manhandles a 240-pound person, and it's like, that bastard is a Superman. He's strong. Don't kid yourself. You know, he can do, and he was good with wrestling too. George was actually a amateur wrestler, so he could do holds, but the Animal, that didn't make sense. George the Animal Steel wasn't going to come out and give you the flying hammerlock was a different gimmick altogether, but he wasn't going to shoot a half on you or anything like that. His was mayhem. He come out, tear up the arena, scream at the crowd, hey, and it's like, man, that's it. You got gold right there. And I'll tell you real quick, Eddie, Captain Lou Albano, if you book Lou Albano against Bruno or Chief, everybody else can have the night off, and you're going to have a sellout because they know he's going to get murdered, and Lou would sell it to perfection. He would blade like nobody's business because when I was a kid, we followed the blood from the ring to the dressing room, and it's like, they'd say this is fake? Bullshit. Look at this. This ain't no capsule or whatever the hell they're talking. Look at this. And man, that was great because Lou would always do his antics. You'd hate him, right? And then it's like, all right, he'd get his comeuppance in there with Bruno. And it was like, here he comes. He'd get a couple of jabs in, maybe for an object. And then that's it. Bruno would just tear him to shreds. Boom. That was it. Beautiful job done.
That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I enjoyed the book. And, you know, I didn't, obviously I was probably just born towards the end of the 70s. So I didn't get a chance to watch any of that, but it was pretty cool to feel like you were there, at least for me, you know, watching it. And also it was pretty cool seeing all the guys that I grew up with that are in the book that I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that they even wrestled back then.
It's a history book as well. And you know, at first I had a problem selling it to Scott Teal, the idea, because Scott was like, we don't need another This Day in History book. I said, but Scott, it's not like that. Then when he looked at it, he's like, we got to do this. This is unusual. This is unique. We have to do it because you are and see, Scott Teal was a South type based wrestling fan. He said, I'm learning from this. I didn't know this much happened on the East Coast. He said, this is really a great experience for me as well. He said, but we're seeing it through your eyes. And that's why I tell people it's not about me. It's about us.
Right.
What the fans lived and still live till this day.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can pick up the book when it was real.
Please. And
I'll tell you what, everyone should go out and get it because it really is a cool ride through the 70s. So I thought that was pretty cool.
In the Worldwide Wrestling Federation.
Right, in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. Well, Nikita, always a pleasure to have you on.
Same here, my friend.
Talk with you. And we'll see you another time. Hopefully we'll get you on another time.
Thank you, Eddie. Das vidanya.
All right.